Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of my tutorial video channel. In this episode, I will discuss how marginal costing technique can be applied in case of merger of two factories. The management of an organization has two factories with identical plants and machineries. The management desires to integrate both the factories as one and run the production. Here we have one numerical problem. There are two factories, factory X and Y. Capacity utilization in factory X is 60% and in factory Y is 100%. Turnover of factory X is 120 million and of factory Y is 300 million. Variable cost of factory X is 90 million and that of Y is 220 million. The fixed cost of factory X is 25 million and that of Y is 40 million. Now the requirements are: number A, what would be the capacity of the merged plant to break even? And B, what is the profitability of 80% capacity of the merged factory? Right? So there are two factories under a single management with identical plants and machineries, and the management contemplates to integrate both the factories and run as one factory. The requirement is: what would be the capacity of the merged plant to break even, or the merged factory to break even, and what would be the profitability if the merged factory is run at 80% capacity. Remember, these two factories are running with different capacity utilization. Factory A is operating at 60% and factory Y is operating at 100% capacity. So I am solving this problem. Please watch carefully. Solution. Factory, this is part A. Factory X 60% capacity, X 100% capacity, Y 100% capacity, and finally the merged factory. Now we can only find out the productivity of the merged plant only if we convert the 60% capacity of plant X, factory X, into 100%, so that both the capacity utilization of factory X and factory Y become 100% each, which would be the 100% capacity of the merged plant. That is, 100% of X and 100% of Y will make 100% of merged factory's capacity. So merged factory is 100%. Turnover, that is sales, at 60% is 120 million. Therefore, what will be the capacity, what will be the sales at 100%? That is 120 divided by 60 into, that is 200 million. And plant Y has a turnover of 300 million at 100% capacity. So the total sales of the merged plant at 100% capacity will be 200 plus 300, that is 500 million. Less variable cost. What is the variable cost? For 60% of plant of factory X, for 60% capacity it is 90 million. So what would be the variable cost for 100% capacity? This is 90 million. Okay. So this will be 100 divided by 60 into 90. So this gives 150 million, isn't it? At 60% capacity, turnover is 120. Okay. So 120 divided by 60 into 100. Sorry, reduce 90 million. Sorry, 90 million. So 90 divided by 60 into 100. So this gives 150 million. Correct. And the variable cost of plant Y is 220 million. Therefore, the variable cost of merged factory with 100% capacity utilization is 220 plus 150. So that gives us 370 million. Therefore, contribution (120 minus 90 is 30), 200 minus 150 is 50 million, and 300 minus 220 it is 80 million. That means 130 million. It is 500 minus 370 is 130 million. What is the fixed cost? 25 million of plant X with 60% capacity, and fixed cost does not change, so it at 100% capacity it remains 25 million, and 40 million is the fixed cost of factory Y. So this gives us total fixed cost 65 million. Okay. So break-even point, that is fixed cost divided by PV ratio, here we have 25 divided by 30 over 120 into 100, because PV ratio means contribution by sales into 100, and this is contribution, 30 million is contribution, to 30 divided by sales 120 into 100, and here it will be 25 divided by what is the contribution, 50 over what is sales, 200 into 100, and here it will be how much is contribution, 80 is contribution, sorry, fixed cost is 40 million, so 40 divided by what is the contribution, 80, 80 divided by 300 into 100, and here what is the contribution, 130 divided by PV ratio, that is, sorry, this is 65 divided by 130 contribution by sales 500 into 100. So we get 25, 30 divided by 120, that is 25 by 25%. Here we get 25 by 25%, and here 40, 80 by 300 into 100, so we get 26.67%, and here 65, 130 divided by 500 into 100, so we get 26%. So this is 25 by 25%. So we get 100 million, here 100 million, here 40 by 26.67%, 40 over 26.67%. So we get 255.92, 256.92. Let us take 257, and here 65 by 26%. It is 250 million, right? So we have found out the answer to part A of the question, which is what would be the capacity of the merged plant to break even. So break even will be 250 million. So at what capacity the merged plant would run to reach the break even? Capacity of merged plant at BEP, you see, with 100% capacity the merged factory is producing, the merged factory's turnover is 500 million at 100% capacity. So when the turnover is 250 million, that is the break-even turnover, break-even sales. That means capacity will be 250 divided by 500 into 100, that is 50%. So in order to break even, the merged factory has to operate at 50% capacity utilization. So answer of part A is complete. Now I shall solve part B, and for that I have to erase the solution of part A. So let me take liberty to erase the solution of part A. I think you have understood it well. Okay, what I have done here the management has two factories, factory X and factory Y. Factory X is operating with 60% capacity and factory Y is operating at 100% capacity. They have the turnover of 120 million and 300 million respectively. Variable costs are 90 million and 220 million respectively, and fixed costs of the two factories are 25 million and 40 million respectively. Now the management wants to merge the two plants and run them as one. So I have converted the 60% capacity of factory X into 100% capacity to bring X and Y on the same platform, so that the 100% capacity of merged plant can be arrived at. So I have simply converted the 60% capacity into 100% capacity of factory X and computed sales, variable cost, contribution, etc. for X at 60%, for X at 100%, for Y at 100%, and for the merged factory at 100%. Variable cost of X has been changed from 90 million to 150 million as the capacity is increased from 60 to 100, and total variable cost is 150 plus 220, that is 370 million. Therefore, contribution of factory X at 60% capacity is 30 million. Contribution of factory X at 100% capacity is 25 million. Contribution of factory Y at 100% capacity is 40 million. 80 million. So the contribution of the merged factory is 80 plus 50, that is 130 million. The fixed cost of factory X is 25 million at 60% capacity, and since fixed cost does not change, it remains fixed. So at 100% capacity the firm will incur the same amount of fixed cost. So fixed cost remains 25 million, and factory Y has a fixed cost of 40 million per annum. So the fixed cost of merged factory is 40 plus 25, that is 65 million. Now BP is fixed cost by PV ratio, and we know PV ratio is equal to contribution by sales into 100. So I have simply computed the contribution. We have computed the break-even point by dividing the fixed cost by PV ratio. Fixed cost for factory X is 25 million. So BP is 25 divided by contribution by sales 30 by 120 into 100, and BP of factory X at 100% is fixed cost 25 million over contribution by sales, that is 50 divided by 200. 200 million is the sales and 50 million is the contribution. So 50 by 200 into 100, and the BP of factory Y at 100% is 40, that is fixed cost, over contribution is 80, and turnover is 300, 80 by 300 into 100. Therefore, the break-even point of the merged plant is 65, that is fixed cost, 25 plus 40, 65 over contribution 130 divided by 500, that is turnover, into 100. So we get the BP sales, that is in volume. BP in terms of volume, not in terms of units. The BP in terms of volume of factory X at 60% capacity is 100 million. BP of factory X at 100% capacity is 100 million. And BP of factory Y at 100% capacity is 257 million, and the break-even point of the merged factory is 250 million. So when the merged factory is operating at 100% capacity, its turnover is 500 million. Therefore, if the factory wants to earn 250 million, which is the break-even volume of sales, then what would be the capacity? 250 over 500 into 100, that is 50%. So the merged factory has to operate at 50% capacity in order to break even. So this is done. The first part A is done. Now I would solve part B, and for that I have to erase solution to part A. Okay. what is the profitability of 80% capacity of the mass plant? X factory X at 60%, X at 100%, Y at 100%, and merged factory at 100%. Sales of factory X at 60% is 120. So sales at 100% capacity is 100 divided by 60 into 120, that is 200 million. And turnover of factory Y at 100% is 300 million. So total turnover of the merged factory at 100% is 200 plus 300, that is 500 million. Correct? Variable cost of factory X at 60% is 90 million. So the variable cost of factory X at 100% will be 100 over 60 into 90, that is 150 million. And variable cost of factory Y at 100% is 220 million given. So this plus this, the total variable cost of the merged factory will be 220 plus 150, that is 370 million. Therefore, contribution of the merged factory will be 130 million. Therefore, the PV ratio of the merged plant will be C by S into 100, that is 130 divided by 500 into 100, that is 130 over 500 into 100, that is 26%. So PV ratio of the merged factory is 26%. This is solution B. What is required? What is the profitability of 80% capacity of the merged plant? So when the merged plant is operating at 80% capacity, 80% capacity, then sales of the merged plant would be 500 into 80 by 100, because 500 million turnover is at 100% capacity. So at 80% it will be 80% of 500, that is 400 million. This is 400 million. So at 80% capacity, the merged plant would have a turnover of 400 million. Less variable cost. What is the variable cost of the merged plant at 100%? 370 million. So it will be 370 into 80 by 100. So this gives us 80% of 370. 236. $296 million. 370 into 0.8, that gives us 296 million. So variable cost is 296 million. $296 million. Therefore, contribution, which is sales minus variable cost, will be 400 minus 296, that is 104 million. Correct? Less fixed cost. What is the fixed cost of the merged plant? Fixed cost of factory X is 25 million and that of factory Y is 40 million, and fixed cost remains fixed till 100% capacity. So the total fixed cost of the merged plant is 40 plus 25, that is 65 million. So this is 65 million. So what is the profit? 104 minus 65, that is 39 million. Okay. So the profitability of the merged plant at 80% capacity is 39 million. We have simply converted the turnover of the merged plant to 80%. 500 million corresponds to 100% capacity. So at 80%, the turnover would be 80% of 500, that is 400 million. And the variable cost of the merged plant at 100% is 370 million. So at 80% capacity, it would be 80% of 370, that is 296 million. So sales minus variable cost gives us contribution. So contribution of the merged plant at 80% capacity. At 80% capacity is 104 million, and fixed cost remains fixed, that is 25 plus 40, that is 65 million. So we deduct fixed cost from contribution to arrive at profit, which is 39 million. Okay? Yeah. So in this video I have explained how the marginal costing technique can be applied in case of merging of two factories, right? It is enough for this video. I believe you have understood this well. Still, should you have any doubt in your mind, if you think any particular point needs further clarification or explanation, if you have any particular question regarding marginal costing technique, please feel comfortable to let me know through the comment section. I shall be more than glad to respond to all your relevant questions. If you think this video is beneficial for you, please do share the video with your friends, brothers, sisters and colleagues so that they can also get benefit by watching this video. And finally, thank you very much for your precious time. Stay well and goodbye.